Hello and welcome to this episode of The Bearded Mystic Reacts. It's a different episode where we're actually going into the whole Jay Shetty controversy, as you can see from the screen here. I want to actually look at the whole article and have a look about where does it go wrong and what does it have right as well. Not everything is completely wrong. The headline is Uncovering the Higher Truth of Jay Shetty. Very interesting play on words, because obviously the higher truth indicates something, but here the higher truth is obviously a negative connotation, which is interesting. I've seen a few podcasts and a few reactions, and they talked about what is Jay Shetty wearing. I must say, whoever's Jay's recent stylist should be, no offense, but should be fired. He used to dress so much better in the earlier videos, in my opinion, but his recent, style of dress is interesting, to say the least. And also, it goes away from the whole monk thing that he was trying to sell a few years ago. It's like he's trying to redefine himself as well, new hairstyle, all that. And just to say, the caveat is, I've never read Think Like a Monk or his new book about love. One, I don't want love advice from Jay Shetty. Don't think I need it. And two, Think Like a Monk. I just was never appealed to it. But I think I may end up reading it and doing a review on that book as well and seeing what's good about it. But yeah, let's have a look. I used to be friends with him on Facebook before he got famous. I want to give that as a caveat too. But after he got famous, we got out of touch. I actually deleted my Instagram and everything, my old Facebook, and subsequently had a new Facebook, obviously, for the podcast and Instagram for the podcast. He hasn't followed me on that, so we don't really interact anymore. He's probably forgotten about me now that he's high up in Hollywood. But more on how much I know him a bit later. Let's get to this, the emojis of the prayer hands. That's a good, Guardian's pretty good. Celebrities call him amazing and fans pay thousands, but what exactly do they get from this self-help guru with an iffy origin story? That's pretty true. It's by John McDermott in Los Angeles. Let's have a look at this. So on 20th August 2022, Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck got married on Affleck's 87-acre countryside estate in Savannah, Georgia. Oh, he was in Georgia, not far from me, and he never told me. He should have gave me a call. The nuptials were the closest thing the US had to a royal wedding. Okay. Two A-list actors reunited after years apart. It was the kind of storybook ending you might see in a J-Lo rom-com. That's funny. And I like Ben Affleck, actually. I think he was the best Batman we've had. Or he was a decent Batman. I like Christian Bale's Batman too. Presiding over it all was Jay Shetty, the former Hindu monk who's become a one-man self-help empire. Shetty and Lopez connected in January 2021 on the YouTube show Coach Conversations, a sponsored series produced by the handbag brand. Interesting. Lopez grew so enamored of Shetty, she invited him to officiate the ceremony. Jay is pretty charismatic, so I can see that. He has very enchanting eyes, and just generally, I remember when I met him, he's just warm and cool, just chill to be around. But the fact that he's like officiating the wedding, a bit weird. I mean, did he do a whole Vedic ceremony? And there's a reason why I say this, because he claims to hold Vedic ideals. This term Vedic ideals is thrown around a lot, but it's misleading. But I'll go into that later on. The wedding was a coronation for Shetty, who loved reading celebrity autobiographies growing up as a British Indian in North London. That's very true. He loves autobiographies. He was now accepted into Hollywood's innermost circles as a celebrity in his own right. Yeah, he is, man. He's been on The Daily Show, he's been on The Ellen Show, and apparently he was invited to the White House. I didn't even know that. And he's interviewed Michelle Obama. But yeah, he's pretty big. His On Purpose podcast, which I'm not subscribed to, by the way, I stopped listening to it after a year because I didn't find anything interesting about it, to be honest. But it's still among the top 10 most subscribed to in the US last year. Has featured a litany of high-profile guests, including Michelle Obama, Kim Kardashian, and Matt Damon, as well as Kobe Bryant, who gave one of his last interviews, obviously with Shay, before his tragic death. Shetty has written 2 bestsellers, Think Like a Monk, a 2020 memoir self-help guidebook based on his time studying Hinduism, and 2023's 8 Rules of Love for helping people better maneuver their romantic relationships. Calm, the meditation startup worth a reported $2 billion, has given Shetty the title of Chief Inspiration Officer. Why? Beats me. Shetty also has a life coaching business, the Jay Shetty Certification School, where students pay thousands of dollars to learn the Jay Shetty discipline. He has 40 million followers on Instagram and 6 million across his 2 YouTube channels. Now I'm going to sip on my tea. PG tips if you're from England. What's my issue with this? Well, first of all, I don't like the sound of this life coaching business. From the get-go, my red flags about how capitalist Jay has got just shows in that moment when he began his certification school. Although I grasped it from his On Purpose podcast, the celebrities, and then on top of that, the amount of sponsors he had, I felt like it was all very capitalist feel vibe to it. Then he had all these products coming out. It turned me off and made me question him a lot more. But anyway, going back to the article, Shetty has been widely celebrated for these achievements. In June 2023, he attended a White House state dinner for the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. 2 months later, he sat down with Joe Biden for an exclusive interview about the administration's mental health initiatives. This past holiday season, he and his wife, Radhi Devlukia Shetty, were featured in a Gap campaign. This month, he made his acting debut in Lopez's semi-autobiographical musical film, This Is Me Now. Oh, the fact that he's made his acting debut is interesting. But the biggest one for me is he sat down with Joe Biden about mental health initiatives. Now, there's a problem with that in the sense of there are so many mental health professionals out there, and Joe Biden decided to sit with him. Jay Shetty is not the poster boy for mental health, in my opinion. Why you would do that, I don't know. I guess the administration wants to keep this young outlook, is in it with the millennials and Gen Zs, but Jay Shetty is not the person. In fact, I prefer if Biden spoke to a professional. So that's just me. Him meeting Modi is fine. Look, he's a well-known South Asian celebrity. Makes sense for him to be part of the state dinner. And the fact that now he's doing his acting debut, I wonder whether that was his whole intention. There's good money in acting, so. But self-help is a better market, in my opinion. I wish I could do it. I just can't get the grift on. But yeah, recently the ultimate mark of Hollywood influencer success was bestowed on Shetty. A menu item named after him at Erewhon, I don't know how you pronounce that, the ultra high-end grocery chain in Los Angeles. The Jay Shetty Love Potion smoothie contains rosewater, banana, raspberries and strawberries. This sounds disastrous. The Jay Shetty Love Potion. Jay Shetty might as well just sell Viagra. I mean, at this point, it's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. But I guess it goes with being famous. I get it. Yeah, delivering pop psychology wisdom called from sources as varied as Carl Jung, Bruce Lee, and St. Francis of Assisi. Shetty has earned near universal acceptance. It's a remarkable rise to fame for a man who says that just 13 years ago, he was living as a penniless monk in India. I don't believe the monk story for a second. I didn't really believe it, and I wonder whether Bruce Lee would have accepted what Jay's doing with his stuff, and Carl Jung for sure would have probably done a psychoanalysis on the guy, to be fair. In his origin story, which he tells in his books and countless podcasts and talk show appearances, Shetty is a business student preparing himself for a life of corporate ladder climbing, until one day he attends a guest talk by a monk. Shetty is so in awe that he seeks the holy man's tutelage. "It changed my life," Shetty said on the Ellen DeGeneres show. "It was the most captivating presentation I've ever been to. He spoke about selflessness, service and kindness, and it just got me hooked." Okay, interesting, because I think this was apparently at the Cass Business School. Selflessness, service and kindness is not what business school is all about. I know it likes to give the image, but nah. And there we got a picture of him. Jay Shetty, Love Rules. Tonight sold out. This must have been a live show or a world tour that he did, yeah. After graduating, Shetty forgoes a life of material success to live as a monk himself. 3 years later, he has another revelation. His purpose in life is not to live the humble life of a monk, but to use his preternatural oratory skills to share wisdom with the world. Thus begins his transformation into a public self-help personality and his swift rise to fame. This is where I have an issue, actually. Why would a monk leave such a prestigious, respectful title, status, occupation to then share wisdom with the world? As a monk, you can share wisdom with the world. There are many monks doing that. The fact that he thinks he has to step out of that means there's some other intention. In my opinion, why else would you do this? I don't buy this whole thing. And I think he did this whole thing of make wisdom go viral back in the day. But I question his intentions and whether he was really a monk or whether he was just having a little stay for a few months at the eco village, or there's a reason why I mentioned that, or at the Bhakti Vedanta manor where I met him in Watford. So Shetty's success is largely predicated on this riches to rags to riches backstory. Yeah, his parents were rich, then he went to penniless monk, then he's rich again. Yeah, these are all red flags, in my opinion. His qualifications for being the world's most prominent mental and spiritual wellness guru are, according to him, this spiritual awakening and the time he spent in solitude in an ashram in a village near Mumbai. But people close to Shetty have questioned whether his conversion to a life of monkhood was quite so dramatic. I question it too, and what I question is whether he is a spiritual wellness guru. I do not like to associate him with spirituality. I don't see him as a spiritual teacher or guru or monk or any of that type of term. He talks about self-help. It's very different to spirituality. And I think that line has to be drawn. But yes, he's managed to go into both kind of routes, paths, which is cool and interesting. But much of Shetty's spiritual education took place not in India, but in Watford, an orbital town outside northwest London, they say. He was there not because of a spiritual discovery in college, but because he grew up in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as ISKCON, or the Hare Krishna movement. And yes, that's true. Shetty says he spent his time as a monk in meditation and religious study, but he also spent a lot of time making proselytizing videos for social media and hosting lectures at universities in London. Shetty almost never discloses his association with ISKCON, perhaps concerned with the organization's problematic history, which includes the allegations that in the 1970s and 80s, members engaged in corporal punishment, child sexual abuse, and on 2 occasions conspiracy to commit murder. Instead, he presents his spirituality in vague terms. I want to take a step back and come to the defense of Jay a bit here. One, he's definitely a Hare Krishna. I don't care what he may claim. He was really into it. I remember seeing him at the Bhaktivedanta Centre in Watford. He was introducing a play that the Band of Sena were doing, and not only that, but he was We met there, we shook hands, and I don't know if we hugged, but we definitely shook hands. And he was big on this. He was really into it. Now, what I will say is that Jay would not know what happened in the States, I'm assuming, in New Vrindavan, which is where this took place. What should be questioned is the views of the founder, Srila Prabhupada. He was anti-Semitic, he was racist, he was casteist, he was homophobic. All those things have to be talked about. He was misogynist. So I would say that needs to be looked into. And whether Jay wanted to be away from that. But he's known for interviewing Radhanath Swami, who also has a few allegations. His guru is apparently Gauranga Das. And we're going to look into Gauranga Das a bit more and see what does he really teach. But all these Hare Krishna people right now are all into this whole self-help, chant to be happy type of spirituality. But again, I don't really want to call it spirituality. And he has an interview with Gauranga Das, which is why I want to probably do a reaction video to that. But he doesn't mention his faith, but that doesn't mean that he's shy of it or anything. I just think it's not what he needs to do right now. With the work that he's doing, it's irrelevant. But yeah, he would not know possibly of the problematic history, in my opinion, because that's what happened more in the States, unless he learned about it when he arrived here. That would be possible. I first met Shetty last March when I was assigned to write a profile of him for Esquire magazine. After attending his stage show, I became skeptical. One segment involved Shetty inviting a volunteer on stage and putting her in a de facto sensory deprivation chamber to illustrate how difficult it is for people to put down their phones. We all do that. Come on. Look, I've seen videos where he's on his phone. Come on. The crowd then watched her fidget via a live video feed. That's pretty horrible. I would not like to be that person. Later, he invited a different woman on stage and had her call her estranged brother, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. When the call went to voicemail, Shetty instructed her to leave her brother a message while we all listened. A woman sitting 2 seats to my right audibly remarked, "This is mortifying." I agree. Just think about what that woman's going through. She's not spoken to her brother. To make her do it in front of a bunch of strangers lacks emotional intelligence. This is key, because apparently he's big on emotional intelligence. This lacks emotional intelligence. Repairing relationships is not easy and is not something for a live event. It's something very personal. And someone who is apparently into wellness, mental health, and spiritual wellness, the fact that he doesn't know this is questionable about what he actually is. That's where I have some issues with. Why he would do that, I don't know. I began researching and found multiple allegations of Shetty using people's content without consent of attribution and distorting details about his past as a monk. The Esquire profile never ran, surprise. The magazine didn't want to turn the interview into an investigation, but this article is the result of investigating those claims and interviewing dozens of people, including high-ranking members of ISKCON, people who know Shetty personally, his schoolmates, his former employers, academics who study Hinduism, and graduates of Shetty's life coaching school. Interesting, I think the Esquire would probably want to do a fluff piece, and it didn't turn out to be that way. But yes, I know about Shetty basically stealing people's quotes. Now he copies them. But again, are you paying those people for taking their quotes? Probably not. And that's where he's a grifter, in my opinion. I'm pretty big about this. You can ask my family. Like, when you quote something, make sure you quote it properly and you give attributes to the person. You could say he's giving people clout. I get it. Okay. But 2, if you've seen the Nicole Arbour takedown of him, it's pretty interesting. And this was like 4 or 5 years ago, I think she did the video. The coaching school. This is when I say Jay's lost his way is this one thing, the coaching school. I remember contacting the number or something, or a messenger. I remember when it started, and it's like Jay's chatting to you, but it's a bot, and it's just horrible, because it's just deception on many levels that is unbelievable. But anyway, let's go into this. Shetty is hardly the first self-help guru to embellish his spiritual credentials to amass followers, but he demands huge sums of money for his guidance. Shetty has used his spiritual authority to launch a number of subscription and education services, including the Life Coaching School, which charges $7,400 a term for postgraduate diplomas, level 7 and qualifications, equivalent to a master's degree. That's crazy. The Jay Shetty Certification School pays OTHM, a private exam certification company in the UK, to evaluate and certify its accreditation. It also claims that Ofqual, which regulates all exams for schools in England, approves the qualification. According to the school's brochure, as OTHM qualifications are approved and regulated by Ofqual, Office of the Qualifications and Examinations Regulation, Jay Shetty Certification School students are also eligible to progress to a top-up degree, master's program or MBA at many universities in the UK and overseas with advanced standing. That's crazy. Making that claim is crazy. That's big. Like, you can't make such a claim, but he does. Ofqual said it does not regulate the school's accreditations. An Ofqual spokesperson wrote that the organisation would be contacting the school to have references of Ofqual removed from their website. That is crazy. How he can get away with that. Like, that's damning in itself. Lawyers representing Shetty told The Guardian that the Jay Shetty Certification School is not approved by Ofqual, but that it is an OTHM approved centre, and that OTHM is approved by Ofqual, and that as a result students are eligible to progress to certain programs with advanced standing, as it says on the school website. But OTHM told The Guardian that Ofqual do not recognise Jay Shetty. The centre is not linked to any OTHM Ofqual regulated qualifications. They said that although the Jay Shetty School is an OTHM endorsed learning program, these programs are not Ofqual regulated, and the way the arrangement is currently advertised on the Shetty's website might mislead. Might mislead? It is misleading. In October 2023, when The Guardian was reporting this piece, the school's brochure listed University of Derby, Anglia Ruskin University, University of Buckingham as universities where students would be eligible to progress to a top-up degree, a way to getting a full undergraduate degree by combining Jay Shetty Certification School diploma with only 1 year of full-time study. The coaching school's website still states that progression arrangements for a Jay Shetty coaching course to lead to a top-up MBA have been confirmed by the University of Chichester. But when The Guardian contacted these universities, oh my god, all of them denied any link with Shetty's school. We have never worked with Jay Shetty Certification School, the University of Chichester's Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, Mark Barlow, said in an interview. I'm very unhappy that we are included on the website. We are unsure why we are being mentioned. We will immediately be making contact to get our name taken off. The claims about Ofqual and the University of Chichester remain online as this article goes to press. I wonder if it still stays on there. But the crazy thing is that this is someone going on record from a university saying, we did not approve of this. And the fact they never worked with them, and yet on the website they make claims, it's pretty poor. Why did you become a monk? Okay, Jay, you're amazing, Ellen DeGeneres gushed when Shetty joined her show for the first time in spring 2019. I wonder where she is today. So you were a monk in India. First of all, why did you become a monk? I'm sure Shetty's going to give a nice answer to this. Shetty proceeded to tell the spiritual origin story he has relayed in numerous other interviews. As Shetty tells it, he's an 18-year-old first-year student at Cass Business School in London, where one of his friends invites him to attend a lecture at the school given by ISKCON monk named Gauranga Das. I wasn't interested in hearing a monk's perspective on life, Shetty told DeGeneres. My friend forced me to go. He promised me we would go to a bar afterwards. Yeah, this is a story he keeps saying. And one thing I found out that Jay Shetty said that he stopped drinking at 18 on a blog post. So the bar story is something that could be questioned. But he could claim to still be 18, that after the meeting he stopped drinking. But yeah, was he really forced to go? I don't know. The other thing I want to mention about Gauranga Das is that I tried to find who Gauranga Das's guru was, and I wasn't able to find that out. But if you know, do write it in the comments. I would like to know, because this tells you the lineage that Jay Shetty is from, and that lineage is questionable. I am not a big fan of the Hare Krishnas, basically based on philosophy, but him doing what he's doing is okay in their lineage. They're all are self-help, motivational speakers. The lecture ends up drastically altering the trajectory of Shetty's life. My whole life, I've been fascinated by people who've gone from nothing to something, rags to riches stories. Shetty writes in Think Like a Monk. Now, for the first time, I was in the presence of someone who deliberately done the opposite. Okay. Shetty is so amazed by Gauranga Das that he follows the monk back to the ashram in India, spending his summers and holidays there studying ancient Hindu texts. After graduating from Cass, Shetty moves into the Indian ashram full-time, he says, renouncing the trappings of the material world for a devout life as a monk. Shetty tells conflicting versions of the story. He often changes the age he says he was when the lecture occurred, telling different news outlets that he was 18, 21 or 22 years old when he attended the talk. On Shetty's own Genius website, whatever that is, it says Shetty heard a monk speak for the first time when he was 21 years old. Even on his own website, he's not consistent. That's what happens when you become too big for your own brand. You can't tell a coherent story. In an email, Gauranga Das, the monk in question, told The Guardian that the lecture at Cass Business School occurred in 2007, when Shetty would have been at least 19. Okay, so that's interesting. So we met at his college and then several other events that week, he writes. Shetty's legal team confirmed to The Guardian that the lecture took place in 2007. What's interesting is, have you noticed Shetty's legal team? Another red flag. Why would you have a legal team answer? When you talk about having courage, you talk about all these things on social media, yet you're lacking courage right now, Jay. This is not a good look, in my opinion. The fact that you cannot even answer these questions and you got a legal team to do it, it doesn't make sense. Chaitanya Leela, a member of ISKCON, who was in a romantic relationship with Shetty from June 2008 to December 2009, says of Shetty's story, he was in ISKCON before 2007. I would say so too. There's no way he was not part of it before, afterwards, after meeting Gauranga Das. He must have known Gauranga Das before. They host a lot of sessions, whether it's at people's houses, their residence, or at the center, the Bhakti Vedanta manor. It's interesting. The spiritual epiphany Shetty often describes seems to have happened a year earlier in the summer of 2006, during a trip to France for members of ISKCON Bandasena, IPS, the organization's youth group. The IPS sounds really formal. A video of that 2006 trip, the link for that is in the article, and you see him. It shows a young Shetty interacting with monks in the white or saffron robes that denote monkhood in ISKCON. In one part of the video, Shetty is seen rapping while a man wearing a monk attire plays violin as accompaniment. The Guardian is using archival links to content that is no longer accessible, including some websites made private immediately following inquiries for this article. Again, this is red flags. I don't care where you stand on how Jay Shetty has inspired you, but for someone that claims authenticity, honesty, courage, strength, facing life's obstacles, yet he cannot face his own past, just own up to it, you know what I mean? Shetty spoke about how revelatory the trip was in a November 2008 newsletter published by ISKCON. And this is what he says: when I returned, my view on Krishna consciousness, the ISKCON religion, or whatever it is, had completely changed and had gone through a massive transformation. Interesting. Those who attended the trip with him agreed. He came in and was this London rude boy, said one ISKCON member who was also on the France retreat. But he really immersed himself on the trip. I think he experienced Krishna consciousness and loved it. Okay, that's really cool. I think that's really great. He was a London rude boy. I can imagine how he was. And then there's a complete 180. In 2006, shortly after the trip to France, Shetty was named chair of IPS. Now, come on, you're really entrenched in the organization if you're now the chair of the IPS. And I think I met him in 2015. So he was still associated with them for quite a bit. I want to say 2014, 2015 is when I met him. When me and my friends went to... And I have friends who can attest that we met him. And yeah, it was an interesting trip, to say the least. So yeah, a grainy YouTube video taken later that year shows Shetty jumping and spinning in the center of a Kirtan circle, ISKCON's collective chanting and dancing ritual, led by Gauranga Das, the monk whom Shetty claimed he met the following year. In a letter to The Guardian, Shetty's attorneys wrote that Shetty's 2007 meeting with Gauranga Das was Mr. Shetty's first meaningful meeting and engagement with a monk. I really question this. Like, how can you say that was the first time you met a monk if you've been going to ISKCON most of your life? Mr. Shetty has been attending his local ISKCON temple since he was a child. If you've been going to your local temple, you met an ISKCON guru or monk. While Mr. Shetty came across monks at temple in his youth, those engagements were not memorable or meaningful in any way. Okay, I get that, but you said that, the wording, first meaningful meeting and engagement with a monk. I can attest that maybe he was just not interested when he was growing up. I get it. I think I can even vibe with that. But I don't know. It's just the way they're just making it come across, that was his first meaningful interaction. If this is someone who was a rude boy, he probably had questions, and I'm sure, being a bit cocky, he would have asked. I don't know. The 2008 ISKCON newsletter, Shetty makes no reference to a lecture by a monk awakening him spiritually. That's interesting. In his books, you would put it in the newsletter. You would put it in the newsletter because it's good for the brand of ISKCON. In his books and interviews published since he became famous, he makes no reference to his childhood in the faith and the trip to France. Interesting. It could have been edited out, possibly, but it's a significant part of his history. This is when he met his guru. This is when he had his spiritual awakening. That's when he did the 180. Why wouldn't that be mentioned? Shetty writes in Think Like a Monk that during university, he spent most of his Christmas and summer holidays living with monks in Mumbai, which Leela, Shetty's former girlfriend, disputes. He went to India probably once during that year and a half that I was in a relationship with him, and that was probably for 2 weeks. She said, representatives for Shetty said, because Shetty can't talk for himself, Shetty and Leela only dated for only a portion of Shetty's college experience, so she can't speak to the entire period, and that they had not had any contact in the 15 years since then. Why not go the Krishna route? Though he markets himself as a spiritual leader, that's interesting. Shetty's output isn't overtly religious, neither is it spiritual. He occasionally references ancient Hindu texts, but the vast majority of his content is generalized, secular pop psychology, the likes of which you can find from any number of competing self-help personalities. He's pulled off a seemingly impossible contradiction, branding himself as a spiritual guide without ever specifying the religious tradition he practices. Shetty avoids mentioning ISKCON, instead describing himself as a Vedic monk. What does that even mean? A Vedic monk, in my opinion, would be someone who's into the ritualistic portions of the Vedas. Therefore, very different. The fact that he's not mentioned Vedanta or even Vaishnavism, which is the tradition of the ISKCON, or one of the branches of it, like broad branches. The fact that he doesn't say this is very interesting. It just shows his lack of knowledge of tradition, in my opinion. Yeah, he's probably read a bit of the Gita. Gita's big in ISKCON, but again, there's questions about the authenticity of their version of the Gita because they've changed words. And two, he's read the Puranas, but he doesn't really mention those. So those are the stories part, the narratives. But yeah, I want to know what ancient Hindu texts he has read and actually studied. Not read, studied. Dax Shepard asked Shetty this year on his Armchair Expert podcast about the particular form of Hinduism Shetty practices. When did you decide to become a monk? Why not go the Krishna route? Why did you end up in the Vedic world? Shepard asked. That's a really weird question. Very weird. And then Vedic is a term I've used because Vedic is the overarching term that kind of houses all of these philosophies, Shetty explained. No, I know ISKCON uses the word Vedic. That's why I know where it's coming from. It's not Vedic. It's Vedanta. Get it right. I understand that by using Vedic he's on about the Vedas, but is the Gita part of the Vedas? No. So what are you talking about? And yeah, the article goes into this, which is why it's good in some regard. But Vedic is vague. The term references the Vedas, a collection of Sanskrit writings that are among the oldest religious texts in the world and encompass thousands of distinct Hindu practices. Exactly. And most of them aren't even practiced today. There's no such thing as being Vedic. Being Vedic is being Hindu, basically, said Tilak Parekh, a faculty member at the University of Cambridge's Divinity Department, where he studies Hinduism. Nearly all old Hindu traditions ascribe themselves to the Vedas. Yes, exactly. The Vedas, the philosophical portion, which is known as Vedanta. The other thing I'm going to mention here is he didn't use dharmic. That's the term he should have used. The fact that he didn't even use dharmic is, again, a bit worrying about how much he really knows. But it's part of Sanatana Dharma. He could have said that and he would have been fine. The fact that he uses Vedic, even I find that weird. It's not clear why Shetty would speak so much about his time as a monk, but refrain from identifying where his studies took place. That's true. Like, why wouldn't you talk about that? Perhaps he doesn't want to alienate readers who are atheists or who practice another religion, but he might also be concerned about ISKCON's history in the United States. The Hare Krishna movement, as it was often called, grew in the 1960s by appealing to people disillusioned with the hedonism of counterculture. Instead of free love and psychedelics, Hare Krishnas seek enlightenment through self-denial. Drugs, alcohol, illicit sex, caffeine and meat are explicitly forbidden. To achieve transcendence, they chant the group's signature mantra, which is what we all know. But yeah, to be honest, I can understand why he wouldn't do that when he's in Hollywood. But ISKCON's pretty big now. Radhanath Swami is a guru for a lot of people. Will Smith has met Radhanath Swami. So I don't think... I'm a bit baffled about why Jay will not say he's part of ISKCON. And I've often wondered that. Has he broken away or is he still part of it? And the reason why I think he hasn't broken away from it is because Gauranga Das was interviewed by him, which we're definitely going to do a reaction to, I think, just to see the questions and the answers. But anyway, oh gosh. By the 1980s, ISKCON leaders were being described by some as abusive and cult-like. Men and women who had been raised in the Hare Krishna faith as children said they'd been subject to routine beatings and sexual assaults at the hands of ISKCON teachers. There's actually, I think it's on Hulu, no, on Peacock, there's a documentary on this. It's horrifying. Children as young as 5 had been separated from their parents and sent to Krishna boarding schools in India called Gurukuls, where boys were ordered to have sex with their spiritual masters. Girls were married off to men twice their age. 2 ISKCON members were murdered by a fellow devotee for speaking out against the organization. Both murders were carried out by Thomas Drescher, who is serving a life sentence in prison, where he acts as a guru to other incarcerated people. Yeah, this is true. You can look it up. A documentary has been made from it where it's been heavily researched. It's crazy. Shetty became more involved in ISKCON in 2006, long after these scandals, and once the organisation had already started to fade from public view. The year prior, ISKCON had been ordered to pay $9.5 million to 535 former students who suffered abuse in the 70s and 80s, a settlement that forced ISKCON to file for bankruptcy in Los Angeles and close all of its US boarding schools. Seeing Krishna devotees chant in public became a rarity. A Los Angeles city ordinance banned them from soliciting at the airport. But ISKCON has experienced a revival in recent years, particularly within the Indian diaspora. It has, sadly. Sadly, the fact that the Indian diaspora has done that shows me the Indian diaspora does not know anything about Vedanta. Why they would go down that route, I do not know. By 2016, the majority of ISKCON's members in the US were, for the first time, people of Indian heritage, not the white hippies with whom the religion had been so closely associated for many years. This guy, personality development career in ISKCON, I think his name is H. Bhanu Swami or something like that. He speaks against Advaita. He doesn't know anything about Advaita. He's ridiculous. He's deluded. I could do many videos on him, to be honest, but he's so fundamentalist in ISKCON. It's crazy. It's interesting that there's infighting happening, but one thing I want to say, that the fact that people of Indian heritage are going to ISKCON now, it just shows where people of Indian heritage actually think, like where their mind is set on making money, motivational speeches and all this type of stuff. While if you look at real Vedanta, it's about renunciation. It's about not being attached to the fruits of your actions, giving, doing a lot of service. Although the ISKCON does do quite a bit of service, but there's ulterior motives to that too. The resurgence was in part due to ISKCON members finding creative ways to rebrand Krishna consciousness as a secular spiritual practice, according to Nicole Karapanagiotis, an associate professor of religion at Rutgers University Camden, and author of Branding Bhakti, about ISKCON's efforts to reinvent itself. They've built a lot of yoga studios, mindfulness centers, sustainability centers to attract people who might not otherwise be attracted. That's very true. You would think by now he would have mentioned where he was a monk, yet he still hasn't really. It's hard to imagine that leaving that out is not deliberate, but it's not clear what the reason for that is. Yeah, I would love to know why. Shetty's arm-length relationship with ISKCON has caused mixed feelings in the ISKCON community. Some support his work and understand that he's had to embrace a secular version of spiritualism to reach the masses, while others resent how personality cults have distorted their faith. Yeah, I see both sides. I understand him, actually, of why he would do a secular form of spirituality. If you want to appeal to, which he does, white middle-aged women, that's the approach you're going to take. He's just pandering to his audience. Nothing more than that. And I don't see why he would change that way. But yeah, is his faith got anything to do with what he's teaching right now? Probably not. But yeah, if you're part of ISKCON, This would be worrying. Oh, the Watford ashram. This is interesting. I'm so happy to see you, Gwyneth Paltrow exclaimed to Shetty from the stage of the In-Goop Health Summit in November 2021. If you know about Goop, it's ridiculous. That's when you should know there's red flags about Jay Shetty. When he's invited to In-Goop. I would love it if you could just give everybody a little bit of your amazing story, Paltrow continued. How you came through being a monk and into being this amazing life coach and motivator and all of the amazing things you are. Oh, she was really gushing. Shetty's authority as a self-help figure stems from his time as a monk. It's the basis for Think Like a Monk, and he brings it up in nearly every interview he does. Without his monk pass, Shetty would just be another influencer battling for relevance online. That's quite true. The monk thing is his biggest selling point. And saying that he left monkhood is such a big headline. Think about it. He left being a monk. That's prestigious. But he left it. And he wanted to help the world. It's like this superhero kind of figure. It's pretty smart. Look, on a PR level, yeah, it makes sense. I actually think it makes sense to do that. He understands the branding aspect of that, so he would do that. But I wanted to just say, obviously he's here at the People's Choice Award, but what I find strange is what he's wearing. Jay's fashion sense has just gone wild. I wish he was still a monk. He'd probably dress better. Anyway, Shetty has repeatedly said he lived as a monk for 3 years from 2010 to 2013 in a Hindu ashram in India. When I was 21 years old, I skipped my college graduation to join an ashram in a village near Mumbai, Shetty writes in 8 Rules of Love. There's a similar claim in the introduction of Think Like a Monk, where Shetty writes that he lived in Mumbai for 3 years before returning home to England. 3 years after I moved to Mumbai, my teacher, Guranga Das, told me he believed I would be of greater value and service if I left the ashram and shared what I learned with the world. I mean, why Guranga Das would say that also I would question. I would question the authenticity of his teacher. For example, if Shetty is better off not being a monk, that means he was a pretty shoddy monk. Let's be honest. Why else would you say this? Or Guranga Das saw that Shetty he would not vibe well as a monk and probably would be better off just going out in the world and doing his woo-woo language that he does. A host of media outlets have relayed the anecdote, including the Wall Street Journal, magazine, New York Times, British GQ, GQ India, and the Times of London twice. But some who know Shetty at the time say he spent the majority of his period as a monk at Bhaktivedanta Manor, a sprawling Tudor estate in Watford, a town just outside London, and visited India only occasionally. I believe this. And one thing, Bhaktivedanta Manor was donated to the Hare Krishnas by George Harrison. Virabhadra Das, a Krishna devotee who lived in ISKCON Soho Street Temple in central London from Feb 2011 to September 2013, says he saw Shetty several times over this span during visits to Bhaktivedanta Manor. Leela also told The Guardian Shetty had been in Watford for the vast majority of his time as a monk. Shetty's attorneys say that this time as a monk began in May 2010 when he moved into Bhaktivedanta Manor, and that he moved to India 3 months later. Mr. Shetty spent most of his time in India with trips back to Bhaktivedanta Manor as Mr. Shetty was encouraged by his mentors at the monasteries in India to spend time serving in the community where he was raised. He also visited elsewhere in Europe and the US as part of his service. This is consistent with what Mr. Shetty writes in Think Like a Monk. When I graduated from college, I traded my suits for robes and joined the ashram, where we slept on the floor and lived out of gym lockers. Really? I lived and travelled across India, the UK and Europe. Guranga Das also told The Guardian that Jay was a monk from May 2010 to March 2013. The first 3 months were in Bhaktivedanta Manor. After that, he was primarily based in India. Okay, that's interesting. Now let's C. But Shetty's own writings in his blog post conflict with this account, both him and his guru. This is why I think Gauranga Das is a bigger fraud than Jay is, because he's still wearing the monk clothes and he's lying. Shetty kept a blog called The Essence at this time, in which he recounted his travels around Europe and India in 2010 for his friends back in London. The site was made private during the reporting of this article. In numerous blog posts, he describes Bhaktivedanta Manor as his primary ashram during his time as a monk. If it's your primary place, it's not the India ashram. That means you were staying there majority of the time. He moved into Bhaktivedanta Manor in July 2010, and it wasn't until October 2010 that he visited India, where he initially spent less than 4 months. In early 2011, he wrote on the blog, came back from India, went to see a few people at City University, was a good laugh, then planned an action-packed weekend but got sick, stuck at home in bed for 10 days, few nice souls came and visited, came back to stay at the temple where I've been busy going to programs, distributing flyers and books on the streets all over the UK and enjoying festivals. After almost 4 months in India, I realised there was so much to process from a trip. Contrary to the portrayal in his books, Shetty's time in the Watford ashram was not just a quiet life of seclusion and travel. Exactly. He was busy giving out books, chanting. That's what he was doing. He spent a lot of these 3 years as a monk making viral YouTube videos on the streets of London. I saw him in sweatpants more than I saw him in robes, said a former ISKCON devotee who was a monk in London at the same time as Shetty. I think, I remember being friends with Jay on Facebook maybe in 2011, 2020, 2012, and 2013. I remember interacting with him in 2013, and he started doing a lot more posts on Facebook. He's posting a lot on Facebook, a lot of quotes. So it makes sense. Despite traveling constantly and spending a lot of time online while he was a monk, Shetty said that he had difficulty re-assimilating into society after leaving the ashram in early 2013. That was the hardest point in my life, Shetty told the host of the British daytime TV show This Morning in early 2023. I feel like I experienced depression for the first time. I had forgotten how to do small talk. I didn't know who the Prime Minister was. I didn't know who won the World Cup. I didn't even know how to have a conversation that wasn't deep and meaningful. He didn't mention he spent a lot of that time a few miles from the TV studio blogging and making videos. I find that to be completely a lie. You do a lot of small talk, even as a monk. You do speak to people. You have deep... In fact, as a monk, you will be having more deep and meaningful conversations. You wouldn't know who the Prime Minister was. That's also not true. You wouldn't know who won the World Cup. That's also not true. You're not secluded from the world. If you could blog and do YouTube videos, you knew everything. So, the Tom Cruise of Krishna consciousness. We're coming to the tail end of this. In 2016, Shetty left his job as a consultant to pursue a new career. He rang in the new year by releasing his first video as an independent media personality, a piece about how the Bhagavad Gita can help people with their resolutions. The video was made in what would become Shetty's signature style, delivering a non-stop stream of bumper sticker wisdom and quotes from prominent spiritual and cultural figures, Gandhi, Leo Tolstoy, Ringo Starr. Shetty's first video is more overtly religious than much of his oeuvre. I can't pronounce that correctly. The New Year's resolutions video was released on the YouTube channel Hare Krishna TV. Interesting. Shortly after it was published, Shetty told an ISKCON affiliated news website that he was figuring out how to make his message more palatable to Western audiences. The article states that Shetty and a team of urban monks who do not know who won the World Cup sought to present Krishna consciousness to the Apple generation through blogs, social media, videos and presentations at universities, and that he wanted to bring people to the Krishna faith. We can connect people across the world with Krishna consciousness and start a revolution online, Shetty said in the interview. This is very telling. In Think Like a Monk, Shetty writes, this book is completely non-sectarian. It's not some sneaky conversion strategy, I swear. I do not believe him. In Think Like a Monk, you may not claim that you're part of ISKCON, but it's there in the subtext. Especially when you say who your guru is as well. Come on, man. No, converting people to Krishna consciousness is not Mr. Shetty's goal, Shetty's lawyers wrote to The Guardian. Think Like a Monk explains Mr. Shetty enjoys sharing the ancient wisdom he learned as a monk in a practical, accessible, relevant and transformational way. Yeah, okay. One ISKCON member says Shetty is to the organization what Tom Cruise is to Scientology, a magnetic, media-friendly ambassador for an otherwise controversial religious institution. His sheer fame serves as a recruitment tool. That's very true. Again, he interviews my spiritual teacher, Guru Angad Das. That is a clear kind of shout out for ISKCON. People are hungry for spirituality, but they're not interested in having to bow to red-robed monks, shave their heads and chant ancient foreign mantras, writes Ronald Purser, a professor of business at San Francisco State University, a practicing Buddhist for 40 years and the author of Mindfulness, about Western capitalism co-opting and subsuming Eastern religious traditions. A savvy influencer like Shetty, with gobs of charisma, charm and entrepreneurial flair, offers exactly what the masses want: a spiritual but not religious, DIY, quick fix type of spirituality. That's very true, and the very spirituality that my channel is against. We are not happy with this type of stuff. Oh, look at him there, showing off, sitting on the floor at Cannes, France. What is he doing there at Cannes? Like, I don't know. Shetty's videos got the attention of Ariana Huffington. He moved to New York in fall 2016 to work for HuffPost, but quickly realized he didn't need the backing of a media outlet to achieve fame as a wisdom peddler. Wisdom peddler. By early 2017, he was releasing his videos on his own through Facebook and YouTube, where his growth was meteoric. 2 years after striking out on his own, he has surpassed 1 million followers on YouTube and 20 million on Facebook. He told Mashable he was making 6 figures per month through Facebook's ad revenue share program for creators. Despite what he writes in Think Like a Monk, Shetty's social media prowess wasn't the result of his singular hard work. He used his stature within ISKCON and the IPS youth group to convince dozens of young members to help him produce and promote his work in the name of serving Krishna. I believe that to be true. You have to appreciate that Jay was like a superstar within ISKCON at that point, and he was getting people to do so much stuff for him for free. Remember, there's one ISKCON member. Shetty had members post his social media content to their friends and family, urging them to like, subscribe and share. That's very true. He did tell us to do that a lot. Even though I'm not part of ISKCON, but part of his friend group, he did used to ask to share his stuff. It was relentless, recalled another ISKCON member. Facebook and WhatsApp and texts and emails. I don't think he'd be where he is without them. Mr. Shetty did ask and encourage friends to post, share and subscribe to his content, according to a letter from Shetty's attorneys. Some friends assisted Mr. Shetty with filming and editing. Mr. Shetty did not make promises or represent to individuals, organizations that they would be paid for posting, sharing, liking and subscribing to his content. Yeah, that's true. He didn't say that, but still. But much of Shetty's content was plagiarized. In 2019, a social media influencer, Nicole Arbour, published a video. Jay Shetty is full of exhibiting how Shetty built his social media presence by lifting content from other people, making inspirational quotes, many of which have been copied, oftentimes verbatim, from accounts with smaller followings look like original content. Do check that video out, it's really good. After posting the video, Arbour says she was inundated with messages from writers and digital creators who said Shetty had appropriated their work and refused to give them credit. Even after they asked him directly, they sent email after email begging him to take his posts down or at least credit them, and he just didn't. Arba said. That was pretty upsetting to me. That's when he's a grifter, frankly. Many of Shetty's original videos were based on pre-existing parables and social media posts that had gone viral years earlier. Shetty released a melodramatic YouTube video in 2018 in which a blind woman dumps her boyfriend after receiving an eye transplant and discovering that her boyfriend is in fact blind himself. The twist, the boyfriend had donated his eyes to her as an act of selflessness, and she was emotionally blind to see. Lol. That's really corny. This cautionary tale had appeared on Reddit 5 years earlier, and again on Facebook in 2017. Another Shetty video from that year is a theatrical reenactment of The Cookie Thief, a poem that had been making the viral rounds as far back as 2010. In another instance, Shetty copied an Indian man's Facebook post about how parents shouldn't put so much academic pressure on their children, word for word, and without permission or attribution in one of his videos. After Arba's video, Shetty ordered his employees to go through all posts and include attributions to content that had been taken from elsewhere. He deleted more than 100 posts. Red flag. He also hired a crisis PR firm, massive red flag, which launched a robust search engine optimization campaign, according to a former employee of Shetty's. It was a learning experience for Mr. Shetty and his team. Shetty's lawyers write about his unauthorized use of people's content. From that point on, we are not aware of any issues of this nature arising. Shetty still uses other people's content on his Instagram, now with attributions to the original creators, but he still does not get permission from the source accounts. The Guardian spoke to 3 online creators, the TikToker Emily Becker and the Twitter users Big Mel and the Oracle Reads You, whose content was reposted on Shetty's Instagram page in the past year, and all of them said Shetty has never asked to use their content and that they received no compensation from him. His popularity is based on just repurposing other people's content, and that's what he seems to be making money on, Arba said. The opposite path of a spiritual person. This is, I think, one of the good parts of it. Shetty moved to LA, what he calls the content capital of the world, in early 2018 and got cozy with big stars. One of Shetty's earliest Hollywood admirers was Russell Brand, who's now going to Christianity, by the way, who was refashioning himself as a post-woke social commentator. The same month, Shetty made his first of 3 appearances on Ellen and 3 on Red Table Talk, Jada Pinkett Smith's Facebook talk show. Will Smith took Shetty on as his personal spiritual advisor, and the pair would end up spending so much time together that they would later joke their wives suspected they were in a romantic relationship. This is interesting. This must have been prior to the Oscar slap incident when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. I guess the spiritual advice didn't work, but also the fact that he was friends with Russell Brand. I was a fan of Russell Brand. The way he's gone recently is disappointing. Obviously, that means that he didn't really have a deep understanding, and it's a shame. He's an Indian man. He's attractive. He's charming. He's sweet. Fariha Roisin, the Australian-Canadian author of the book Who is Wellness For? A critical look at the multi-trillion-dollar wellness industry, wrote in an email of Shetty's appeal. I've been in the same room as him, and he's appealing in the sense that he seems quite humble in person, almost shy. There is something compelling about that story, someone who accidentally came to fame, which I probably think to some degree is true. Yet it's questionable that a monk left his life in a monastery to instead live a life of what? Making TikToks? Hanging out with celebrities, being on YouTube. It's almost the opposite path of what you assume a spiritual person arrives at. Yeah, when you claim to have been a monk, yeah. But again, to his defense, if he saw that life wasn't meant for him, it's good that he went out of it. So that's courageous too. But I would say that there would be like this element of still remaining humble that should still be there, which isn't. As Shetty's circle of celebrity friends expanded, so did his lines of business. In January 2020, Shetty launched the Jay Shetty Certification School, a 6-month online course that trains enrollees in Shetty's success coaching methodology, so basically an MLM. To learn about the school, I signed up for an introductory call. After 30 minutes of explaining the school's schedule and curriculum, an enrollment advisor finally informed me about the sign-up cost, $7,400. That's a lot of money. Information that's not available on the school website. The advisor was kind enough to make me a one-time deal and cut the price to $6,800. 3 days later, the advisor followed up with another call, and I pushed him about how graduates of the school recoup their $7,400 investment. The advisor had gone through the program himself, he said, and had been able to make his money back in just 2 months thanks to the school helping him set up his life coaching business. He eventually built a big enough book of clients to make $10,000 a month from the business, he said. I asked him why he had quit his life coaching practice if he had been making so much money, and he said he made just as much now as an enrollment advisor for the certification school, a job that's entirely commission-based. It really aligns with my purpose, he said. With life coaching, I impact one person, or I can be here and help people like you who are going to go on and impact thousands of people. But then why wouldn't those people just end up becoming enrollment advisors? I mentioned that his explanation, him being certified in the Jay Shetty school, then certifying others so they can teach thousands of others, reminded me of a multi-level marketing scheme. I don't know how to answer that, he replied. I'm just trying to help people, man. The Jay Shetty certification school doesn't meet the formal definition of a multi-level marketing MLM company in that success is not entirely dependent on recruiting others to join the school, but it does share a lot of the characteristics with companies that operate as a pyramid scheme, according to William Keep, a professor of marketing at the College of New Jersey and an expert in MLMs. There are many similar patterns here, Keep said. When what we're seeing more in MLM world, especially recently, is services instead of products. Someone builds credentials that are difficult to verify or exaggerated, and then suggests they have a secret. I've got these wisdoms to share with you. What you do with them is up to you. He does that. Jay does that a lot. The Guardian spoke with several graduates of the Jay Shetty certification school. By the way, I know someone who's also gone through this school, and their experiences with the school were overwhelmingly positive. They felt the tuition, though expensive, was a good deal relative to other life coaching courses, even though none of them were earning a full-time living from their coaching business a year after graduating. The Jay Shetty certification school has accredited more than 1,100 students in 3 years, according to its brochure, which at $7,000 a student means more than $7 million in revenue. That is crazy. By the way, do check out this video as well. It's really good. Shetty also markets himself in his content as an authority on mental health, which he's not. Last spring, Shetty wrote 7 easy ways to improve your mental health right now in a blog post for the meditation app Calm. A July 2022 YouTube video from Shetty instructs his viewers, let's talk about mental health. On his podcast, Shetty shares with his listeners 7 things to do this weekend to boost your mental health in an episode. Shetty's former girlfriend Leela, a practicing psychotherapist for 13 years and the head of mental health services at a university in the UK, fears Shetty and his life coaching school provide inaccurate and potentially dangerous mental health guidance. My issue as a mental health professional is that Shetty has misrepresented his persona, his knowledge, and his credentials, Leela said. Misinforming others is not only unethical, it's potentially harmful to vulnerable people. Just to say, Leela, she's also done a video about this whole thing, so she's come out in the open. So that video is worth checking out too. Shetty's wellness industry success allowed him to purchase a home in Nichols Canyon in the Hollywood Hills in fall 2021 for a reported $8.4 million. From a monk to a mansion. That should be the title for his next book. From monk to mansion. The house was formerly owned by Balthazar Getty, an heir to the Getty oil fortune, whose family has been Hollywood royalty for generations. So far, Shetty's rise has had a few critics. When people do question Shetty, they have quickly dismissed. After he appeared on Armchair Expert this March to promote 8 Rules of Love, one of his show's Instagram followers wrote a critical comment. Super disappointed that you're platforming Jay Shetty. He is not an expert. What credentials does he hold to help people through their current struggles? That's true. Jay Shetty is not a mental health professional. I'm not a mental health professional. That's why I think it's very important that my deal is only with spirituality. And for mental health, you should always go to a mental health professional, to a therapist, to a counsellor. Dax Shepard, the show's main host, answered the comment from his personal Instagram account. If you listen, you will quickly hear that he is an expert in the religions from India. What religions? Buddhism? Sikhism? Hinduism? I doubt it. Jainism? I don't think so. I found it illuminating. This means I'm going to have to listen to that episode and we're going to react to it. Shepard wrote, what religions those are exactly, Shepard didn't specify. That's what I mean here is we're going to now question this, because this is what he says. The article tells where it's being corrected. So, still sipping my tea. It's good tea. This is an interesting article, and it tells you a lot about when people try to sell spiritual ideas in wellness. Let me make one thing clear. Spirituality has nothing to do with wellness. Mental health is serious, and you should always consult a mental health counsellor, therapist, or professional. Spiritual people, we can only help you, and ethically we have to help you, but I can't tell you that meditation will totally get rid of stress in your life. And along with therapy, it can help you to address stress in your life. The other thing that I will say is spirituality is about liberation. Jay Shetty, he calls himself a spiritual guide. This is what the article says. And I know I've heard him say that he's allowed people to call him that. He's a spiritual advisor to Will Smith. And also, what I want to say is he's obviously also allowed people, he's interviewed people who peddle on some level conspiracy theories about COVID. How has he allowed them to be? That also, in my opinion, is worrying. The other thing is, he's also selling tea with his wife. So many things that he's doing now. But what I'm coming down to is that spirituality is about liberation, about freedom. A freedom from the self of the body and mind, the association. Not to disassociate, but to understand that's not your identity alone. And Jay doesn't provide that. That's why I stopped listening to him. That's why I don't take him seriously. But at the end of the day, if Jay has chosen to not associate himself with ISKCON, I don't see that as a red flag as much, but it's also telling about what his views on ISKCON are. In my opinion, I think there's a lot for us to go into when we look into this whole Jay Shetty thing. We have to look at this podcast with him and Dax Shepard. We're going to have to look at the interview between him and Guranga Das as well. And so those two things will be coming up. It's been a long episode. Tell me what you think about this article. We really need to look at holding people who talk about spiritual ideals to a higher standard. And it starts with people like Jay Shetty. And we need to look into and be honest that are these people actually offering us spiritual advice? That was my deep dive into the whole article. I hoped you liked it. It's pretty long, I know. And if you stayed with me throughout, thank you. But until next time, think about the people you follow. And think, are they providing what they claim to be providing? And don't just look at someone because they have so many followers that they're great. It's not always about the numbers. It's about the quality. It's about the content. And that's what matters. Anyway, thank you very much. And I shall see you again soon. Thank you.